Someone who had this before me underlined this quote.
Okay, let's get started.
Hey, we were a bit late. We used to make credit. We were kind of like a few seconds late.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I was still writing, so you were there.
Yeah.
Nobel, join us. Come in the front. There. There's a seat waiting for you over there. Thank you. Yeah, he's wondering if you can move forward so he can sit down. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. And can you come after class? I need to talk to you about your thanks. One more person also, Khan. Your test is good, but it's not long enough. So can you do, so the test you put in, the test 2, can you redo it and get me 2 pages? I think that's it. Who's Paul?
Yeah.
That's you? Okay. What was it? The reading assignment? That must be the...
Which one?
There was one thing that came in. What is this? Yeah, it must be the reading assignment. You did the reading assignment for this time, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I didn't know who you were, so last name please. And I don't know your first name. Okay, no worries. That's it. Yeah, so still a few tests missing. A lot of you handed in, that's good. I just graded it now, so what is going on? So have the whole time? Okay, yeah, so I graded most of your tests. I'm still missing Khan. So you have until the next test, right? Which is coming up when? Anybody know?
Next week. Next week.
Next
Saturday
week,
next week.
during the break? Put
Yes.
your test on the break, okay? So you have until next week.
April seems like April something.
Nobel, likewise, that we'll talk. But your second test is due before next week, before next Friday.
All right, I'll talk to you.
Yeah. Talk to me after class. Tal has disappeared. Rubinov also. Smith also. Any news from Smith? The girls over there? No? All right. Okay, let's get started. How was it? It's getting hard, huh?
It's not so hard.
It's only going to get worse and worse.
Right.
With Levinas, it will be the hardest, and then we'll go to Simone Weil and we can all take a breath, right? Because she's going to be very, very nice to read. But yeah, this is climbing up the hill. Yeah, let me address a few of you frustrated with the writing. Recon, right? So I'm going to add, there's a couple more things I want to add so you can see why it's writing like this. And where's the doorman? That's you? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Yes. 2 reasons, right? First of all, this is written, right, between, when is this written? After World War I? Yeah. So this is the wartime in Europe, right? This is a time where Europeans finally found themselves in a place of profound humility, right? Remember, the wars came after the Enlightenment, where Europeans were thinking, or Westerners were thinking, we've got this, we're going to create a better world, everybody will become civilized, we're going to really have a world where everyone is moral and we are, very technologically advanced. And then the 2 wars just destroyed that illusion, right? So we studied someone before the war. Who was it? I guess people like Maimonides, for example, right? Look how sure of himself he is, right? Maimonides is very confident. Right? Look at the title, The Guide to the Perplexed, right? Maimonides is like, I know the way, let me teach you, here we go. Marcel is writing during the war where people are realizing we don't know where we're going. We were wrong about where we were going. We thought we were going somewhere and it didn't work out. We thought we were moving towards a more civilized society, and now look at us, right? We've fallen back into barbaric behavior. So there is a mass general confusion, a general humility that they don't know the way anymore, like they used to, right? Mm-hmm. And so Marcel here, this is why he's so unclear, because he's not giving us a clear path, because he is lost, right? We have to acknowledge that Marcel himself is lost and going in circles. All he's doing here, all he feels he can do is have certain epiphanies, little glimpses of the truth. He has a certain intuition, and then, you know, he continues to kind of, so this is a kind of wandering thought, right? He's taking us on this kind of, I'm just thinking out loud, but I'm not sure where I'm going. I'm not sure where this is leading. I'm not even sure if this is true, right? So he's really giving us a taste of someone who is in the searching, right? And this is why you're so confused, because it's like, he's not saying anything. Yes, because he doesn't feel he has the authority to say anything, because he is just searching and humbly getting a piece of truth here, a glimpse of truth there, and he's sharing that with us, but he knows he cannot give us a synthesis. He can't give us a clear path. He can't give us the truth, because he himself realizes truth is not accessible anymore. We have to kind of search for it, and we are in a confused state. So that's the first reason why he's really hard to understand, because he himself is not sure where he's going. He does have a few glimpses, I think, very powerful intuitions, right, which are worth exploring, but he is never going to linger too long, because he's too humble to say this is the truth, right? So he just gives us a glimpse and then moves on to another glimpse. And that's the second point. It's really up to us to stop on some of those glimpses and go deeper. So Marcel, that's another thing he's doing. He's saying, I'm not going to show you the path. I'm going to show you a direction. And then it's up to you to then go and really think about that thing that I gave you a hint of, and you have to finish the work that I started. So this is really a book which is supposed to kind of like trigger you. It's supposed to inspire us. It's supposed to awaken our thinking, but we have to finish his thought. We have to finish his sentences, right? Which is why it's so important to study it, right? Not just read it. Okay, does that help a little bit? Tom and whoever else was complaining about the style. Okay. So with Marcel, like I said, the best thing to do is just read through. Levinas is going to be worse, right? So just read, just go along with the flow, right? Just enjoy not understanding. Occasionally, you'll get a sentence that strikes you as interesting. You might not even understand, but it's like, ooh, I need to ponder this, right? And you can wait and just sit there and ponder that one sentence, and then just continue. Don't try to get the whole thing, because it's really impossible unless you have 10 years of study behind you. You have to read all of Marcel to understand one sentence, right? Because he's just, there's so much going on, right, in his mind. Okay, but we'll get a few thoughts out today. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about, throughout this whole thing, I'm going to talk about two things next couple weeks. Number one, the disenchanted world. I think I said that in the audio recording. In the audio recording is the same outline. So the disenchanted world and the rise of despair, right? Disenchanted, D-I-S, and then enchanted, E-N-C-H-A-N-T-E-D. So we'll talk briefly about that again, going into the quotes, and then we'll talk about number two. This is over next week, rediscovering being and hope. Rediscovering being and hope. Okay. So what, did anybody remember my definition of disenchanted world? Why we are living in a disenchanted world? Did I talk about this in the audio? Okay. All right, go ahead.
So basically, the enchanted world is a world full of beauty, mystery, like this idea that there's so much that we don't know. And then Nietzsche came along and was like, everything that you think is false, everything, like religion, for example, is just a false construction of mind, nothing. There is no greater purpose in the world, there's no mystery. Like what you see is just what is, there's nothing more than that. So Marcel is kind of saying that this enchanted world is the aftermath of Nietzsche. He's saying that Nietzsche kind of tore apart our belief in anything greater than what we are, and that's why I don't believe in the mystery of it.
Nice, very nice summary. I'll give you a star. It's really nicely done, right? I hope you guys heard that. Right. This is the disenchanted world is the world which Nietzsche, of course, partly destroyed, right? Nietzsche is not the only one responsible, but he's part of that movement of destruction of anything that was mysterious, mystical, spiritual. Slowly, as the West is becoming more technologically advanced, more scientifically minded, it's kind of thinking we don't need to believe these stories anymore, right? And so it's shedding, and it's kind of really letting go of this whole early world, right? The world of the ancients, the world of the medievals, which was mystical, which was mysterious, where there were angels and gods and demons, and there was a heaven and an earth, right? This is all gone by the time Nietzsche comes on the scene, and he just
say it's even more disenchanted now.
Yes.
To Nietzsche's style in the 19th century. It's
yeah.
more secular, more materialistic.
Exactly, right? So we live in this world, right, where there is no more real spiritual. There's nothing. We are really, and I guess I'll put it this way: if you look at your daily activities and what you are striving for, just as an individual in our civilization, it's always mostly right. When I ask students, it's like, I want to get, finish my degree, get a job, get a house, get a family, and then I'm done. So, and then, live happily ever after, right? So we have become very materialistic, right? The highest goal in this country is wealth, right? If you have wealth, then people take you seriously. They vote for you for president and everything. Because you're a big man, right? If you acquire wealth.
But I would also say, a lot of people in this class are think it's the degree requirements. They use it to fulfill their flexible course.
Exactly.
For their degree, for money, not for
exactly. Right. So in general, in this country, right, we respect people who have wealth. And if you have wealth, all of a sudden you become the great guru. You can tell us how to be happy. If you can see that, right? So this, and so we are really in a state where the world has become disenchanted. We don't really believe in anything beyond what we see. That's what it means to live in a disenchanted world, right? Let me say that again. Disenchanted world is not believing anything beyond what you see, what you understand, what you know. Anything else that doesn't fit with the categories of your mind, like, it doesn't exist. This is ridiculous. This is old wives' tales, right? So Marcel is saying, okay, we don't have to go back to old wives' tales, right? But we have lost something. We have to acknowledge that collectively we have lost something very important. And of course, Marcel is not going to say, let's go back to religion and sing Kumbaya with candles, right? He's not going to say that. But he's going to say, we need, even as secular-minded people, we need to recover this lost dimension of mystery, right? So he's really addressing a secular audience, and he's telling them, you don't have to go back to religion. I know you don't want to, right? But even if you're an atheist or an agnostic, there is still a fundamental human need for mystery. And what he's going to try to do is to articulate in secular terms, how do we connect to that dimension? That's the genius of Marcel, right? He's able to reframe this lost dimension in strictly secular terms, so that somebody who's an atheist or an agnostic can really relate to that and not be like, oh, okay, I don't need to go sing hymns with a harp, right? So that's the idea. So this is, I think, the genius of Marcel, that he's going to not only point out that we have lost this dimension, but then he's going to show us that it does exist, and he's going to argue for it. Unlike religions who just tell you believe, right? Marcel is going to say, let me give you an argument that makes sense to your mind as to how this dimension possibly exists, right? Okay. So anyways, back to where we were, the disenchanted world, right? So in such a world, right, from Marcel, there can be no true peace or happiness, right? Because we are living in a world that has really, which is extremely hollow, right? He talks about it in terms of being hollow. And so we can get momentary, we can feel a little better by watching maybe a bunch of Netflix shows, but we'll never really have lasting peace or lasting stability if we still retain this disconnect with this deeper dimension, right?
Yes. I think a lot of people just numb themselves.
Exactly.
They're not really experiencing joy. They're just turning their brain off.
Exactly, right? So that's what we have, by the way, so much I would add, right? So I'm living right now in my house. There's a bunch of teenagers and kids. They're all on TikTok, like all day long. It's like, what are you doing? Like, how, and these are kids, that went through stuff. So, it's a numbing, right? There's a complete loss. I mean, it's unbelievable the way kids spend their time now. And so, I mean, what does it do to the brain? This constant, and it's dumb images. It's like one image after the other that makes no sense. And it's, what are you doing? Anyway, so the addictions we have, right? We are such an addicted society. Even kids, right, are addicted to these videos. We're addicted to Netflix. I'm addicted to Netflix. We're addicted to Amazon, right? We have so many addictions, and these are the healthy ones. I'm not even talking about the other addictions, right? We are so addicted as a society. Why? Marcel would say this is the despair that we're trying to numb, because we have lost the connection to this deeper dimension. And for him, the day we recover this connection, without necessarily becoming religious, this is not a religious dimension, right? Maybe religions have stumbled on it, but this, for Marcel, I want to be clear, is a human dimension. This is part of what it means to be human, and we have lost touch with it. And the day we reconnect to it is the day we will lose this despair and find meaning, and we won't need all these addictions, right? Okay, so let's look at a quote. Let's go to page 12. And I'm like on the last paragraph. It should be noted. Who is there? Wait, if you're there. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
to read.
No,
Oh.
if you're there where I am. Yeah, you're there. Okay, good. It should be noted that this world is, on the one hand, riddled with problems, and on the other, determined, this is the key, determined to allow no room for mystery, right? This is the disenchanted world. We don't believe in anything beyond what we see or understand. And Marcel is saying we are missing out when we act like that, right? Which I believe to be fundamental. For the moment, I shall only point out that to eliminate or try to eliminate mystery is to bring into play in the face of events which break in on the course of existence, such as birth, love, and death, that psychological and pseudoscientific category of the purely natural. So he's saying the people who deny mystery, right, are saying, well, I'm just being a scientist. I'm just being a naturalist. And he's saying, you're just being a moron. Basically, that's what he's saying. Like, that's straight up what he's saying. It's a pseudo category. You're fooling yourself and sounding scientific, but you're not truly scientific. Because even scientists recognize that there is this deeper dimension. Ask any high-level physicist or biologist or researcher, they will tell you there is something going on that's mysterious and that we don't have a grasp on. Right? Just check modern physics.
There's a quote from a physicist named Werner Heisenberg. He's saying the first gulp from science will make you an atheist, but the last gulp will make you a believer or something.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Yes, especially contemporary physics, right? Quantum physics and so forth is really hitting upon the mysterious core of existence, right? There are things there that make no sense rationally, but they're part of our life, right? So maybe they're stumbling upon being, right? In the way that religions also did. So he says there are some events, however, which should awaken in us a sense of this mystery. Event of birth, event of love, event of death. I want to stop on these three because all three we have to a certain degree experience. And he's saying at these moments, we stumble on something that we cannot control, we cannot understand, and which is mysterious. And this should give us already, it should open up for us that dimension of mystery. For example, let's take birth, right? You're not at that age where you're trying to conceive, hopefully. Not yet. Maybe some of you are, that's fine. But as soon as you start to do that as a woman, you will immediately start to have. This is a really difficult test for women because this is one thing in their lives they cannot control. A woman cannot control if she will get pregnant or not. And this is so difficult, right? Sometimes. And some women struggle for years, right? They're like, I don't understand what's wrong with me. What's going on? Why can't I conceive? And then other women, they cannot control that they got pregnant. It's like, damn. So there's an element here that we do not control. Whether we become pregnant and we don't want it, and it's like, I did not want this, or we're trying, and we do not understand why we're not able to do it. There's very clearly the woman hits very early in her life, as soon as she tries to conceive or is dealing with pregnancy, she hits upon this dimension of I cannot control this. This will happen or it will not happen. This is not in my hands. And by the way, to the degree that the woman can relax and surrender into that is the degree that she will conceive. This has been shown very interesting, right? The degree that the woman surrenders and says, this is out of my control, and doesn't try to like grasp it and strive for it, actually creating the conditions of possibility for the conception to take place. This is very interesting, right?
Well, it's not just with childbirth, it's with a lot of other things. It's a lot of things where you try hard. It's harder to achieve when you try too hard.
Exactly. Second place, now all of us have gone through this, where we are hitting upon a mystery that we cannot control, understand, master, love, right?
Mhm.
You're in love, you love them, they don't love you. They love you, you don't love them. You're in love together, but it's not working. It's like, and you're like, what? You know, I'm trying to make this work, and you can't, right? And both of you now are trying to make this work, and it's not working. It's crazy how mysterious and elusive love is, right? And just a plug for my love class 104. If you're struggling with this mystery, come to my class. I will help you navigate the mystery 104 in the summer and in the fall. Yes, no bad.
So basically you're saying that if this force is not going to work, but if you just let it go, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, in essence, what he's saying is there are things in life that we cannot control. That's the main idea. I'm adding, right? I'm giving some conception advice for people who need a conception advice, right? But in general, what he's trying to say really here is simply this, that there are things in life we cannot control, that we hit against the wall. Death, of course, is the ultimate, right? I don't control when I'm gonna die. I don't control when you guys are gonna die, right? And we don't even know what death is. We don't know. Maybe it could be a really happy event. Who knows? You know, maybe it could be a big party on the other side. Why we try to control and decide and determine that it's bad or good or tragic, right? Death is another mystery that we are going to hit against in this existence. So already, even if you're a complete atheist, you know that there are moments in life, there are liminal spaces in life, there are gateways in this existence which are opening up this dimension of mystery. First gateway, birth. Second, love. Third, death, right? So already we should be aware, not everything is as it seems, not everything is, not all that is, right, is what I, no, how do I put this? You know, reality is not reduced to what I know and understand, right, and control. There are moments in reality where you realize a gateway into the dimension of the mysterious, right? Everybody with me so far? Okay. So, all right, so that's that quote. And then, of course, remember what he said, right? The fact that we have lost the contact with mystery is what is creating the despair, which most of us are trying to numb through addictions. Even children now are despairing in this world.
I'm not going to let my kid use a phone or a TV.
I am so like, I already have a strategy. I'm gonna ban these things from my house, turn off the internet. I've done it. Like I've literally like plugged off the internet because I was like, you know what?
Yeah,
Really smart, actually.
Huh?
Really smart, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I control this thing. I can just take the modem, what is it, the router, this white box, take it with me in the bedroom, hide it. Done, no internet. No, problem solved.
Do you have children?
No, right now I'm living with a few kids and adolescents, so I'm dealing with this. And loud video games too. Yeah.
Do you play?
No.
Oh.
I'm the old generation.
Well, you're not old, you're young.
Yes, in your mind. Okay, so back to despair. So despair on page 27. All right, so this is where he says, do I have it? Yes. Go to that third paragraph, right? And you can go to just the last 3 lines of that third paragraph. Page 27. Last 4 lines. I believe that at the root of despair, everybody with me? Okay. I believe that at the root of despair, there is always this affirmation, there is nothing in the realm of reality to which I can give credit, no security, no guarantee, no foundation, no anchor. That's what he's saying, right? The despair comes because we have lost our anchor in mystery, or what he calls later being, right? When I say the word mystery and the word being, it's interchangeable for Marcel. Being with a capital B is this dimension of mystery that we have lost touch with, right? Okay.
What's that page?
Page 27.
Oh, 27.
Okay. So this dimension of mystery that he's talking about, of course, Marcel, unlike most of his religious counterparts and so forth, he's going to say, I believe we have lost touch with it, but I'm going to do more than that. Before telling you how to reconnect to it, I'm going to argue I'm going to give you an argument as to whether it exists, right? Because remember, speaking to a secular audience, he's speaking to people like Nietzsche. Remember, we're responding to Nietzsche. Well, and as Cordmani said very well, right, Nietzsche is done with mystery. He's like, this is all there is. Let's just embrace reality. There's nothing else. Let's be courageous. Let's stop deluding ourselves. So Marcel is hearing Nietzsche in the back of his mind, right? And he's thinking, how can I speak to him a language he understands? And so he has to argue for this dimension now. He can't just say it's there, because Nietzsche is going to say, you're just being delusional with the rest of them, right? You just want this to be there so you can feel happy and not in despair. So Marcel is going to do something very interesting. He's going to argue for this dimension. So I mentioned a little bit in the audio how he argues for it, but now I want to go into a little more detail, or maybe recap what I said, because we're now going to go into the real deal. So the way that Marcel is going to argue for this is very different. It's not, let me frame it like this. Do you remember, Rumi, the knowledge of the heart and the knowledge of the mind? That was a test question, right? And we are right here with Marcel back into the knowledge of the heart, right? For Marcel, this dimension you cannot know intellectually. So he's not going to give an intellectual argument, right? He's going to give an existential argument. Our doorman is always locking himself out. I don't know. What kind of doorman are you? That we have to open the door for every class. Oh, that's what it is. Okay. No worries. Okay, so what was that? Yes, knowledge of the heart, right? So for Marcel, let me say that again. The dimension of being is not something we can access intellectually. Why? Because it's the dimension of mystery. You cannot understand or access or master a mystery, right? With your mind, with your narrow, rational categories. So Marcel is going to say, very similar to Rumi, that this dimension can only be accessed, not so much with the heart, but existentially, right? In other words, there are certain feelings which will give you access to this dimension. So it's very close to Rumi, right? Rumi also said there's feeling of love, which can give you access to God, right? So he's saying something very similar, but he's going to go way beyond love, right? He's going to say there are certain feelings that we feel that can give us access to this dimension. So our mind is not going to know anything about it, but our heart will know, right? So let me explain why our feelings, in a sense, can be taken seriously, because it can be proper sources of knowledge. Because most of us are thinking, I have all kinds of feelings, and it's all, linked with my bipolar disorder, or, most of us don't take feelings seriously. We think it's just, I didn't sleep good, or I need a cigarette, or I need, so
Just TikTok.
your TikTok, right? So I need to explain a little bit why feelings can be relied upon as sources of knowledge, right? This is important to show. So first of all, first thing that we often don't realize is that feelings always point to or give us an access into a reality, right? Feelings are not just, chemical reactions in your body. Feelings are pointing
Indicators.
to, thank you, indicators of a certain reality. So for example, you're sad today, and when you think about it, you're like, I remember why I'm sad. Yeah, like I texted a friend who didn't respond, I feel stupid, right? And now I'm sad. So, okay, something in reality caused the sadness. Or you're angry, right? And then you're like, why am I so angry? Okay, someone in the subway shoved me and I'm still like feeling that, right? So you can see how feelings usually always point to a reality. There's no feeling without a corresponding reality which caused the feeling, right? So reality is always at the origin of the feeling. Feeling doesn't just randomly pop up. There is a reality always behind that feeling. There is always a reality which is causing that feeling. Are you getting this? Make sure you write this down, right? Feelings, in this sense, right, are, and this is a technical term, they are intentional. 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 Feelings are always pointing to a reality. There's always a reality which somewhere is causing that feeling. There's no, now, imagine, this goes even for some of us who are chronically sad, right? If you go back even in your history to the original trauma that got you like that, right? There's always some trauma which is at the origin of, the bipolar disorder you're going through, or this, not the schizophrenia, but the depression and so forth. There is always some cause in the natural world in the past, perhaps still unprocessed, is causing this clinical depression or this disorder, right? So feelings, make sure you write this down, always connected to a reality, right? Now Marcel is gonna go a step further, and he's going to say, well, there are some feelings which are not caused by material reality. And so what do we make of these feelings? And he's going to give us an example in a second. What do we make of these feelings? And so he's going to say, well, perhaps, right? With Marcel, it's always perhaps, right? He can't prove definitively the realm of mystery, but he's saying perhaps these feelings are caused by a deeper reality, right? That's the argument. Okay, let me say that again. Feelings for Marcel are intentional, meaning feelings always have a corresponding reality. Feelings are always caused by a reality. This is the case with most of our feelings of sadness and anger. But he says there are some feelings which we do not find a cause in reality. And so then he adds and he says, well, then perhaps, since feelings always have a cause, perhaps there is a cause in a deeper layer of reality. I'll give you an example right now. Did I give the example in the audio of the Upper East Side woman who has a perfect life? Okay, good. I'll reiterate briefly, right? For those of you who didn't listen. Right, so it's this woman has everything, perfect kids, perfect husband, perfect job, right? She's not even at home. She has a career. Everything is good, but she's feeling something is missing, right? And a lot of us, I think, if you check a little bit, you're like, no, I should be happy. I'm not happy. Why? Right? If any of you are going through this, that you feel like your life is good and yet you're dissatisfied, well, that reason might be we still need to finish to graduate to get a job. So most of our dissatisfaction is linked with something that we still need to get. But imagine you get it all and you still have the damn feeling of dissatisfaction. Then there's something more going on, right? That's what he's talking about. Imagine you get it all and you're still feeling dissatisfied. So Marcel is saying, well, there is therefore something. This feeling is tapping into something that it's missing, which is beyond actual reality. It's a longing for something beyond, and that's why he calls that feeling what does he call it? Exigence, right? Ontological exigence, right? Exigence, if you're Spanish, makes sense. Exigencia, it's like, I have to get it, right? So this is that you're longing for a deeper layer, and Marcel is interpreting this saying you're actually longing for that deeper dimension of mystery. That's why you're still dissatisfied and in a way in despair, right? Yes.
I would say in third world countries, they have this conception that, like, in America, people should be happy because everyone's so prosperous. Even the average middle class person is extremely wealthy compared to like someone in like a third world country. So they would be confused that we have so many millions of Americans who are like just so deeply unhappy, despite being so much wealthier than like everyone else in the world.
Right, and very often some of these countries, the happiness index is higher than ours.
Exactly, yeah.
Because they're more connected to each other, more connected to the mystery, and therefore happier, right? Would say Marcel. So material wealth not going to make you happier. Bottom line, right? Okay, so now let's go into, there are three more feelings. This was the one I mentioned in the audio, was the ontological exigence. This is the one where you're still missing something, even though everything is fine. And he's saying, well, you're probably missing that deeper dimension. You're missing the connection. But there's three more which we're going to study over the next over the next couple of weeks. Love, hope, and presence. These are three other feelings which are going to open up this dimension, which are going to point to this dimension, and which, according to Marcel, you couldn't have this feeling unless you were somehow tapping into the realm of mystery. That's the idea. Let me say that again. You couldn't have this feeling unless you were somehow tapping into this dimension of mystery. These feelings are tapping into that dimension. They are showing that you are aware of that dimension, right? Love, hope, and presence. Like to be present? Presence. Presence. We'll talk about that next time. Okay. So today, actually, let me see if I have any quotes I missed. Okay, so yes. So first of all, a quote on the dimension of mystery, on being, which he still has to argue for, but he's first going to describe it for us. This is on page 12. third paragraph, I have written, are you there? Yes? Okay. I have written on another occasion, that's why you need to read all of Marcel to understand anything, because he's referring to himself, that provided it is taken in its metaphysical and not its physical sense, the distinction between the full and the empty seems to me more fundamental than the one between the one and the many. This is particularly applicable to the case in point. Here is the key. Life in a world centered on function, so a world that is strictly materialistic, right, says this is liable to despair because in reality this world is empty. It rings hollow. And if it resists this temptation, right, to despair, right, it is only, this is the line you understand, underline, it is only to the extent that there come into play from within it and in its favor certain hidden forces which are beyond its power to conceive or to recognize. So what he's saying is that this dimension of mystery is not just sitting there looking pretty. There is something deeply personal about this dimension. This dimension of mystery is not only within reality, but it is working in our favor. Okay, so he has to argue for this, of course, right? But what he's saying is that this dimension is not sitting there like a quiet lake, right? Just, you know, pretty. It's not a diamond mine, right? It's actually a dimension which has some kind of a will and some kind of a power, and which is acting in our favor, right? So this is unlike anything that anyone has spoken of before in philosophy, right? Let me give you a quick historical overview of the dimension of mystery as philosophers have talked about it throughout history, and you'll see that Marcel's description is slightly different. So we have, for example, if you go all the way back to Hinduism, which is one of the
oldest religions.
Yeah, and also philosophical systems, right? You have the notion of Brahmans, right? Brahman, which is the divine dimension, which is within all reality. According to the Hindus, there is a divine. The divine is within all of reality, and we can tap into it. Anybody know how?
Meditation.
Meditation on and.
Yes. Doing good deeds.
Yes, that's one way. That's the reaching, the dimension. You've attained the state of nirvana. But there's yoga, right? Which most of us,
oh, yes.
some of us are doing, right?
Do that.
Right. These are postures you take. These are exercises you make to connect to the right. So for the Hindus, obvious there's a deeper dimension, and we can connect to it, right? So we're gonna see how every century you have a different version of this. In Chinese philosophy, you have the Tao, right, which you can connect. Anybody know how Chinese people connect to the Tao?
There's this quote where they say the Tao, which can be named, is not the true Tao.
Yeah. So how do you connect to it?
Yeah.
This is a practice that was banned during the communist revolution because it was so powerfully spiritual. Anybody know?
But experimenting with this thing called non-doing, is that something?
That's part of it, but it's a practice that if you go to the park, you'll see people do.
Oh, Tai Chi.
Tai Chi, Qigong, right? Breathing. This is not just exercises, right? To make your blood flow, right? This is actually, well, originally, now it's been broken down. Communism really destroyed it, made it into like physical exercise, right? But originally, it was a way to connect to this dimension of mystery. This is why communism was so fearful of it. They're like, wait a second, we can't have these people connecting to deeper dimensions than us, right? So they banned it, and they also tortured and persecuted people who were teaching it and professing it.
There's a group here called the Falun Gong.
Yes, I don't know about that, but but yes, it's the same idea that it's a spiritual practice, and communism has an aversion, right, to any authority beyond itself, right? So you have that. Then you go to the Greeks, right, and the Greeks also believe that there is an intelligence within nature. They call it the nous, N-O-U-S, right? And they really believe that nature was intelligent and that we should follow nature. We should follow the flow of life. We should, and this is now leading into Stoicism, we should accept where nature put us because nature is intelligent and there's a reason why we're here. In this particular situation with these particular people, nature has intelligently put us in this situation. Even if it's a painful situation, we need to learn from it and grow from it because nature is intelligent, right? Life is intelligent. So, and then you have, of course, the religions, right? You have Christianity, Judaism, and so forth, which also talk about this deeper dimension. So this has been spoken of throughout the centuries, but Marcel is going to add something. It's not just a dimension you tap into, it's a dimension which is actually on your side, working on your behalf. So now he's getting very, very mystical, and he has to prove this to us, obviously. But basically, he's saying that, if you want me to use some new agey language that's closer to what y'all are hearing all day long, is, you know, is that the universe, right, is on our side. That's basically what he's saying, that there is a force within the universe which is working for us and which is on our side. So, of course, Nietzsche is sitting here, you know, with a smirk. He's like, come on, Marcel, you really believe that, right? So he has to make that argument. So today we're going to look at the first argument, which is the argument from love. So we're going to do that.
You know, some people think the universe is conspiring against them.
Yeah, yes. Have you heard of the conspiration of material things against us? Have you heard of this? You know how when you're in a hurry and you have to make photocopies, anybody, you know what happened to the photocopy machine at that moment? Yeah, and then you know when you're in a hurry and you're driving, what happens then? Tell me. See? You know this conspiracy of material things against us. So I agree with you there. It's a conspiracy of material things against us. And Marcel would say, but there's also a conspiracy of spiritual dimension for us. Yeah. So that's how he would respond to that, right? Okay, so let's look at the first proof, because we really need to start this proof. Otherwise, Nietzsche is going to, you know, leave in frustration. So this is, I'm going to first summarize it the way he says it, and then we'll look at the quote. So this is not so much about the feeling of love, than the feeling of that somehow the person was brought into your life. So let me ask you this question. Think of a friendship or a romantic situation where you felt like, oh my goodness, this, somehow we were brought together. Something orchestrated this. Anybody ever had that feeling that there's an orchestration? Raise your hand. If you feel that sometimes something orchestrated this friendship, something orchestrated this romantic relationship. Okay. Now, the moment you're sensing, this is a feeling. You feel something orchestrated this. What are you feeling? You are tapping into this dimension that is on our side, working on our behalf. Anytime you say, I feel this, something brought us together, you're basically saying being exists. Or I am sensing that there is a dimension like being, which is working on my behalf. Are you following me? Let me say it again.
I took this class.
What? Okay. Very good. You were sensing, right? So let me say it again so you can write it down, right? So any of you who have sensed that somehow an encounter was orchestrated, or that you were brought together somehow by life or the universe or whatever, anytime you have this feeling, you are actually sensing that there is something working on your behalf. That's the sensing of mystery or being in the Marcelian sense of the term. Yeah, again, yes, of course. Yes. So anytime you feel like something brought us together, what are you feeling? You're feeling that something is bringing you together. You are feeling that there is a force in the universe working to orchestrate things in your life. What do you think? Mystery. That's what being is for Marcel. And the fact that you're feeling it, says Marcel, gives it reality. Because for Marcel, remember, this is the key. Feelings always point to a reality. If you're feeling something, you can trust that there is a reality behind it. If you're feeling something is orchestrating your life, probably something is orchestrating your life. Now, let me make this clear, because Nietzsche is very close here. He's standing right there. Do you see him? And so how do we know it's not a delusion? Let me ask that. How do you know that this feeling that something is being orchestrated in your life is not a delusion? What's the difference between a feeling that something is orchestrated and a delusion that something is orchestrated? What's the difference? Go ahead, Nobel.
See it? It's there.
So you can't see it. You're just feeling that something is orchestrating, right?
Well, you can't see why.
Don't see the master, right?
See it, but it's like you feel it's happening.
So how are you not delusionally feeling?
Just thinking about it.
You're so close. You're so close. Who wants to help him out? Yes.
Like you can't create a feeling.
Thank you. I think I said that in the audio, right? Yes, you're getting it. Repeating over and over again. You can't create a feeling. Do you know how much I have tried to fall in love with certain people who are perfect on paper and I can't?
Yeah.
My whole family is like cheering me on. Come on, you got this. You can't. Right? This happened to me, right? There was this, anyway. So do you know how hard it is to fall out of love when it's that they've moved on and you haven't? You're like, man, I wish I could. It's like, I don't want to love this person anymore. Feelings you cannot control. You cannot make feelings. You cannot create feelings. You can create thoughts. You can create whole worlds, right? And Nietzsche, what he's saying when Christianity is delusional, he's saying Christianity created in thought these universes because in feeling, it was feeling miserable, right? Feeling was miserable, and so you overcompensate with thought. But here, we're not talking about a thought. We're talking about a feeling. And a feeling you cannot control. If it hits you, it's happening. That's what Marcel is saying. If you're feeling it, you cannot be the author of it. A feeling always happens to you. It's not something you can make up because you're insecure. It's not something you can manufacture. And so the fact that you're hit with it, says Marcel, is telling him that there must be a corresponding reality behind it, which you have not constructed. Are you following? Mm-hmm. Feeling is much more reliable than a thought. Feeling, you cannot control. It's happening to you. You're not inventing it. Therefore, it's not a delusion. You're not deluding yourself. And because feelings always point to a reality, Marcel is saying, well, then perhaps, always perhaps, right? Perhaps that feeling, what if that feeling, right, is actually pointing to that reality, that actually this is true. There is an orchestrator, right, working on your behalf. Again, right, nothing is for certain for Marcel. You can't march up and find the orchestra and the conductor, right? But what he's saying, remember, he's talking to a secular audience. He's saying, what if your feeling really was pointing to a reality? How about it? Would you be open to exploring that possibility, right? That's all he's saying. He's not saying it's there. It's, he's not militant. He's just saying, it seems to me that feelings point to a reality, a feeling, you're having a feeling that this is happening. What if it was true, right? That's all he can say, right? Okay, so that's what he's talking about. He's talking about this feeling that we sometimes have, and he's talking about romantic love, that somehow we were brought together. This cannot have just happened. Something happened, and that feeling that this was somehow orchestrated, he's saying at that moment, boom, you're tapping into, you're seeing that there is something working on your behalf, basically, right? Let's go to the text, which is on page 21. Okay, so here he's talking about a chance encounter. Let's just read it. Okay. Go to the top, second paragraph, say that I have. Are you there? Okay. Say that I have made an encounter which has left a deep and lasting trace on my life. Okay. This is such an encounter, whether romantic or friendly or even class, right? Next paragraph. It is clear that such a meeting raises, if you will, a problem. But it is equally clear that the solution of this problem will always fall short of the only question that matters. Suppose that I am told, for instance, so people will dismiss it. You'll be like, oh man, this was meant to be, right? People will be like, no. And this is what they say. The reason you met this person in this place is that you both like the same kind of scenery. You both need the same kind of treatment, right? So people try to explain it away, right? Suppose you meet, have this amazing chance encounter. They end up being your life partner. And you're like, oh, this was meant to be. And then your agnostic friends are like, no, you just happened to go there and they happened to go there. And that's how you met. And he will say, this still, you feel like, no, there still must have been something else at play, right? So you're not satisfied with the way your friends dismiss you because you feel deeply something must have moved on my behalf. So he says this here. That explanation means nothing. Crowds of people who apparently share my tastes were in the Engadine or in Florence at the time I was there. There are always numbers of patients suffering from the same disease in the health resort I frequent. So he's saying, no, even if, the probability of it happening is impossible, that such two soulmates could meet with the billions of people that go in the same place every time. How did it happen? And then he continues, neither this supposed identity of taste nor this common affliction has brought us together in any real sense. It has nothing to do with that intimate and unique affinity with which we are dealing. At the same time, blah, blah, blah. So, and then he concludes, here I am in the presence of a mystery, right? So he really wants to emphasize this cannot be chance. The probability of it happening is next to zero. And I feel strongly something orchestrated this, and I'm going to take my feelings seriously as pointing to a reality. Perhaps I am really tapping into right now, sensing in a glimpse of moment, right? I'm sensing something is on my side. And then of course we go back to reality where everything is against us, right? The photocopy machine, the red light and so forth, right? But occasionally we sense something's working for me, right?
Yeah.
And then, but it's very small moment. Then we go back into the,
it's just people don't really notice because they're not really focusing on that. When people
Yeah.
like realize, okay, every day I could have things working for me. They noticed all these things. They were actually, they actually had good luck, but they just didn't really think of it as the.
that's a good point. Actually, Marcel, one of my students, when I was done with the class, he asked me, well, okay, this is great, being exists, I'm convinced, but how can we tap into it? Because he doesn't really talk about this, right? How do we tap into it? And how do we begin to reconnect with this dimension? This is the key question, right? So we can avoid the despair. And it's exactly what you're saying. By being open to these moments of opening up, right? When you have that feeling that something orchestrated this, receive it instead of pushing it back, right?
Yeah.
And the more you receive these feelings and we'll see with hope also, we'll see with presence, the more we receive these experiences and are open to them, the more it will happen to us and the more connected we will become to being as a
Wait,
result.
where's the page? Did you just go to it?
21. 21, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I was also going to say that maybe when something happens, you might think it's bad luck or things conspire against you. You can kind of always reframe it as maybe there's something good in it. Once
Yeah,
you
you
do
could
it
do
that
that.
way, you can kind of.
I don't know about the copy machine.
Yeah.
Still like,
Well, maybe like
I'm still hating on that
if
machine.
you were like a bit late because of the copy machine, maybe you would have had something worse happen.
Oh, okay, okay,
something-
okay.
You never know.
True, yes.
How do you know when something's too good to be true?
You mean when it happens?
Yes, like when everything is going perfectly fine, but it's only a matter of time before something bad happens.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you see here, this is interesting. Let me stop on that. I like that. Let me diagnose you. so she's thinking something is too good to be true. In other words, she's thinking this is beyond my expectations. At that moment, you're tapping into being. Oh my God, something worked on my behalf and created something extraordinary for me, right? But at the same time, you're killing it by saying too good to be true. Right, so you're sensing the goodness of it. You're sensing it's a gift. It's an amazing grace. So at that moment, you're tapping into being, right? You realize, oh my God, something gave me this. At the same time, your mind is fighting it by putting the word too and true, right? And so the moment you say too good to be true, and it's not, and you're now refusing the experience in a way, at that moment you lose the connection with being, right? And at that moment, this is when you go back to ordinary drudge and all the bad things. You see what I mean? So were you, however, to receive it and actually stay in that state of receptivity, it would last longer, I think. Because you're in that state of gratitude. Why do we lose everything we lose? Because we become ungrateful. Think of every relationship that you lost. Ingratitude is the root, right?
That's so true.
So when you stay in a state of grace and like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Yes, it's hard now, but still it's an amazing gift, right? When you stay in that state of grace without fighting it, I would venture to predict that it would last, right? So the too good to be true is what actually is killing it as you're being giving. Does that make sense? Yeah. Did you guys get that? This is so important because this is how we are. We receive these extraordinary experiences. And immediately the mind kicks in and is like, it's nothing. It's too good to be true. This is not real. And immediately you cut yourself off again and you don't remain in the connection which could nourish that gift, right? To remain connected to being as you're receiving the gift is what will nourish the gift and allow it to endure. But too often we immediately cut ourselves off. And then, of course, we fall back into the conspiracy of material things. So that's the idea. Very good question. Okay. Good. Anything else? I have one more minute. One more minute question. Okay. Good. Next time we will talk about two other feelings: hope and presence. It's going to be very interesting because with the concept of presence, this is one of the rare, courageous attempts of philosophers to explain life after death, the possibility of life after death. So we're going to actually go there next time. Marcel is very courageous. Huh?
To the afterlife? We'll go there.
We're gonna get a glimpse of it.
Okay.
A glimpse of it through Marcel. Okay, good. I'll see you, I don't know when, next week. Let me see, Lambert. I think that's it.